something that would otherwise be too big for you to see at all. And it reminded me of the words of St. Paul when he talks about the supremacy of love over all things in his letter to the Corinthians. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. I only know in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. The last few months of living with the coronavirus have illustrated that despite the cooperation of the world's best scientists and all the knowledge that's been poured into that, we still don't know enough to defeat it. Innocent people are suffering and dying, and it's often the people who are putting themselves in dangers for others. Doesn't seem fair, does it? The book of Psalms in the Bible is a wonderful collection of poetry written over hundreds of years. The psalmists express the whole range of human emotions, from triumph to lament. They can be raw and express anger with God when things have gone wrong. Jesus quoted the words of Psalm 22 as he died on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? The next text is not so well known. My God, I cry out day by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. It is common for people of faith to worry and wonder whether their prayers are being heard when they're going through the dark times. My best mate Gareth told me how angry he was with God when I was on a life support machine and not expected to survive following a horrific bicycle accident. Faith in God reminds us of how limited we are in human beings. Learning to see death and dying and suffering from God's eternal perspective is hard, but faith can help us. Later, in Psalm 22, the psalmist begins to express faith in God by praising Him despite the circumstances. He says, I will declare your name to my people. In the assembly, I will praise you. Even if he could not see it at the time of suffering, he clung onto the nature of God and believed in deliverance. But if God is a loving God, how on earth could he have created a world like this? C.S. Lewis wrote about his personal experience of grief after the loss of his wife due to cancer. He argues that God had to create a world where there was freedom of choice, which included the freedom to love, which also involves love, yes, grief and loss. For me, the scriptures reveal a God who came to earth and lived in human form, a God who suffered. In Jesus, God came to suffer betrayal and denial by some of his closest friends. He suffered hours of the most excruciating form of torture man had ever invented. Perhaps even worse was the effect of separation from his heavenly Father. My God, why have you forsaken me? Crucifixion was so bad that even the Romans banned it eventually. But Christians believe that Christ underwent feelings of complete isolation. He normally enjoyed such a warm, intimate relationship with his heavenly Father, but he had to undergo that separation so that we, through what he did on that cross, can start to enjoy intimacy with God here and now, and then beyond and through death. If God came and shared these sufferings, he can identify totally with ours. When I'm going through it personally, or because someone I love is suffering, it helps me to remember we have a God who has been there and is with us even when things seem totally bleak. To end, I'd like to sing you a paraphrase of Psalm 23, which is attributed to King David, the shepherd boy that became the greatest king of the Israelites. In it, he talks about God being with him even in the deepest darkness, or in the well-known King James Version, the valley of the shadow of death.
The Lord is the shepherd king, I've everything I need, everything in him. He leads me into fields of green, takes me down to refreshing streams. He gives me so much new strength, and he leads me in righteousness, just that he did promise to. And I know that even in the deepest darkness I will not be afraid, 'cause you're my shepherd, shepherd king. You prepare a banquet for me while my enemies, they can see me. You treat me as an honored guest while my cup, it overflows. Surely now your goodness and your love, they will be with me all the days of my life, and your house, it will be my home as long as I live, 'cause you're my shepherd, shepherd king. Surely now your goodness and your love, they will be with me all the days of my life, and your house, it will be my home as long as I live, 'cause you're my shepherd, 'cause you're my shepherd. You're my shepherd, shepherd king.